Good evening, everyone. My name is Sixto Cancel, and I'm the founder and CEO of Think of Us. I'm excited to be joined here today by the Children's Bureau and HUD. I want to thank everyone. I want to take a moment to thank you all for convening not only for the first town hall, but for convening the second town hall. I know that these are difficult times, and I hope that we are able to provide a slight bit of comfort with some of the answers that we'll hear from today. Over the last couple of weeks, we have seen our partners mobilize in ways that we have just never seen before. In that first town hall, we asked young people to be at the forefront of making sure that they were lifting up their needs, and that is exactly what has happened. We have seen states issue executive orders as a result of young people mobilizing, and we have seen young people mobilize in different ways to make sure that the needs such as food is being lifted up for those in their area. I want to introduce you to Associate Commissioner Dr. Gary Milner.
Hi.
And he's going to provide us a quick introductions and provide an introduction to the folks who are on the call.
Great. Thanks so much, Sixto. This is our second town hall, as Sixto has just noted, which is designed to address the needs of young people who are in our foster care system or recent alumni of the foster care system. We're so grateful to Sixto and the staff of Think of Us for hosting these calls, for allowing us to stay in touch with you and share information. We're also delighted to be joined by Chris Patterson and staff at Housing and Urban Development for the work that they're doing to address housing for our youth and for being with us here today. Also, thank you so much, Ruth Ann White from the National Center on Housing and Child Welfare for being a part of this as well. We asked for these town halls primarily to stay connected to our young people during a time of crisis and to provide a forum so that we have a systematic way of hearing your concerns and that we're able to respond as best we can to your many questions. I want to be very clear, we do not have all of the answers at this point, but we are committed to getting the answers for you and to working as hard as we can to help ensure that your safety and health and well-being are addressed in all the activities that we're a part of. Over the past few weeks, we have heard very clearly and very directly from young adults and advocacy groups that, among other things, you're concerned about the possibility of being homeless. You're concerned about your fears of aging out of foster care without the supports that you need. Your concerns that your benefits will be lost due to school closures and loss of employment. You've told us very clearly that you need help in these areas, and we wholeheartedly agree across the board that you do need help in these areas. We've received a large number of recommendations for actions, as you might guess, from many different groups across the country who are also very concerned about your health and well-being. We're seriously considering all the recommendations and our abilities to respond to those recommendations as quickly as possible. Where necessary, we're seeking authority to act on as many of the recommendations as possible, and we're fairly confident that we can address some of those concerns without legislative action. Unfortunately, some of the actions that are going to be needed do require changes to federal laws and legislative action. We're also working very diligently in that area. For those that do require legislative action, let me be very clear, your voices are also very incredibly important. Sometimes your voices are far more powerful than our voices, and we encourage you to make your needs known to anyone who is able to lend assistance in this area. Today, again, while we may not have all the answers that you need, we will address many of the questions that you have raised for us. But primarily, I want you to know that we are listening to you. We hear you. We care about you, and we want to be as much of a support to you as we possibly can, not just during this crisis, but on an ongoing basis. I'll add that we are in the process of planning 10 regional town halls with young people that we hope will permit much more direct interaction and discussion than we're able to do on very large town halls. So now I'd like to introduce you to Chris Patterson. Chris is the regional administrator for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. He's also the lead for HUD's Fostering Youth to Independence program, and I know him as a committed advocate for children and young people in our nation's child welfare system. So with that, Chris, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Associate Commissioner Milner. It's an honor to be here today representing Secretary Carson and our HUD's initiative for the Foster Youth to Independence. Yeah, being a former foster youth myself and aging out, as most of you, such as Sixto, Ruth, the Associate Commissioner, and everybody participating on this virtual town hall, you all take it serious as much as we do. This is something that's near and dear to every one of our hearts. And I think the biggest thing we want to express is our commitment to make sure that, especially during this time, we have the levels of support and the levels of commitment to you all to make sure that we're here behind you. The biggest thing is just to make sure that you understand that nothing is sitting idly by. We're looking at every possible aspect, working with as many federal agencies as possible to help during the crisis, as well as during any other period of time. So I just want you to think that this is something that we have started just because this is not Sixto's commitment, the Commissioner's commitment, Ruth's commitment, and thousands of other people who really want to see this change and move the direction. We all behind you. We support this, and we just want to make sure you understand, especially from the words of Secretary Carson. He expresses his deepest concerns and level of commitment from the United States Housing and Urban Development. We all want to make sure that you are supported. We're proud to do this, and this is a population too, like I said before, that is very near and dear to me, and I want to make sure that you all understand that we are here to give you every level of commitment possible. So thank you.
Ruth, would you like to introduce yourself? Ruth, can you hear us?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Ruth White. I'm with the National
Sorry,
Center
Ruth,
for
I think
Housing
you
and
might be
Child
on mute.
Welfare. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? You have me muted, Sixto.
Yes.
Yes, no worries.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me? Did you unmute me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'm Ruthie with the National Center for Housing and Child Welfare. You still can't? Okay, I can hear you, but you cannot hear me. Try this again.
Ruth, I think we're good. I think we can hear you.
You may be experiencing network connection. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thumbs up if you can hear me, Sisto. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm Ruth White with the National Center for Housing and Child Welfare. I saw that you guys had a lot of questions. Sixto's offer those to us to look at. We're gonna get some more questions on this call. The reason that I have answers to any of these questions as they pertain to housing or economic security is because of foster youth themselves. So my organization has been working on getting housing resources to child welfare professionals for the better part of 20 years. But it turns out for about the last 6 years, I've been working directly with current and former foster youth, led by mostly by Lisa Dixon, who's an alumna of CARE from Ohio and Kentucky, and Jamal Callahan, who's also an alumnus of CARE, and they are absolutely extraordinary. They come from an organization called Action Ohio. It's youth-founded, youth-led, and it's interesting. So for about 6 years, they've been bringing young people, current and former foster youth, to DC to try and solve the problems, the housing problems that youth face on their way out of the foster care system. And honestly, they really were coming to complain about a program that I work very closely on called the Family Unification Program. And many of you on this call will have heard of that. These are Section 8 vouchers that HUD offers to local public housing authorities, who then work with their local public child welfare agencies in partnership to select families and youth and provide them with vouchers. But they were complaining because they were saying, you know, that program, there's two problems with it. On the one hand, Family Unification Program vouchers aren't available everywhere. They're only available at certain housing authorities. And then the other problem is, particularly for youth, they don't necessarily time those vouchers with emancipation from care. So you might be in a county where they have vouchers, but you're not emancipating, and then when you're emancipating, vouchers aren't available. So it had pervasive synchronization problems that the youth were explaining to me year after year. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is how important it is to listen to foster youth. For the first few years they came to town, in my head, my reaction was like, American social policy doesn't work like that. Like, things aren't synchronized and they're not available. Mostly what we do is a lottery-like system, okay? And that is very painful. So the more I listened and the more I really thought through what HUD's portfolio looks like, I thought, you know, maybe there is a way to synchronize this. But the reason the problem was invisible to me as a professional with 20 years of experience in program administration and housing policy, it was invisible to me because I never stood at the intersection of adulthood and childhood alone, trying to navigate all of this nonsense. Okay, so I really sat down, I listened to what Jamal and Lisa were saying, and Michael Outrich and Roman. I mean, there's definitely a core group of 30 young people who pulled this together over the years. And we finally started listening to people in Congress like Karen Bass, Michael Turner, really started listening to what the youth were saying. And together we created something called the Fostering Stable Housing Opportunities Act. So if you're interested, you can go to our website. You can learn more about that. It's nchcw.org. I'm sure Sixto will offer that to you. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Before we get too much into it, I want
to
be
came
able
up
to
with
go
an
ahead.
idea, and then the more we looked at the idea, we realized that a size. Yeah.
Before we get too much further, I want to go ahead and start playing the questions from the young people before we start digging
Okay.
in
Can you
there.
hear me okay?
So Sarah, can you take the first question? Yes.
Okay.
I was in kinship care, and I'm representing all the youth who have aged out of foster care and need housing. Many youth are experiencing homelessness and cannot come back into care. How might HUD be able to help?
The question from Kay Bond
So-
there from Virginia was, how might
Thanks,
HUD
John.
be able to help with young people who are experiencing homelessness right now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and say, can you hear me okay? All right, the portion of the bill that these young people wrote has been turned into, because of Secretary Carson, has been created in an initiative at HUD called the Foster Youth to Independence Program, and that is available all over the country on demand. It is a matter of public child welfare agencies making referrals and building relationships with their local public housing authorities. And I just want to say that it's available for any young person age 18 to now age 26 who is experiencing homelessness or is at risk of homelessness, basically anywhere in the country. And this is something that we're very passionate about getting information out about. So there really shouldn't be a homeless youth under the age of, say, 25 who had experience in child welfare. And I'm going to let Chris say a little bit about how passionate the HUD staff has been about getting the word out and getting these vouchers processed quickly.
Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, the Foster Youth to Independence Initiative was an initiative created
You're muted.
by Secretary Carson. Can y'all hear me? I'm good. The Foster Youth Initiative was created by Secretary Carson and 20 current and former foster youth, maybe a little more than 20. They all met face to face with Secretary Carson to discuss the issues that they were facing as they were aging out of foster care or have already aged out of foster care. This particular initiative was created in land speed time, and if anybody knows what DC is like Associate Commissioner does, or Sixto or Ruth, getting anything out in 4 months is a record, and it's almost impossible at times to get things done. But due to Secretary Carson's diligence and his determination with the entire Public Indian Housing Department under Assistant Secretary Kurtz, they committed themselves to making sure that this is successful. There's people like Daniel Darash and Ryan Jones, and I can go on and on and on with the list of names of people who are doing this. But this particular initiative focuses on those youth who are aging out or are aging out or have. And that's up to about 21,000 youth who age out of the foster care system every year. So this initiative created a voucher system that's on demand for specifically kids who age out of the system. That's up to 24,000 housing vouchers a year. That's impressive considering most of us who age out of the foster care system never know where we're going to land after we leave. Usually we end up hearing that our foster parents can't continue to serve us because they don't get reimbursed, they don't get the funding, they can't be in care anymore. So it's pretty imperative that we have some place that's stable we go to where we can create our home that's safe. With this initiative, tied with youth experiencing homelessness, you can go to HUD's Emergency Solution Grant Program, the Continuums of Care Program funding. These programs are funded by local projects, and some are especially
Rhode Island have announced that no youth will age out of the foster care system during this crisis. There probably are others as well. Those are the two that just come to my mind. So it's going to take a very concerted.
Unfortunately, I think we just lost Jerry there for a bit.
I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go.
Back.
All right.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So you were saying that it's going to take a lot of state action, but I think what folks want to know at home and in their states is how is it that the children's bureaus can support the efforts that are going on, even if it is going to be left up to governors and it's going to be left up to states. Is there anything around requirement, flexibility, additional funding that the CB could do to support gaining the idea that a young person would age out during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Right. I think there are things that we can do, and Sixto, there are a number of things that we have in the works right now. I mentioned earlier some things we may be able to do administratively, and if we can do those, we'll do those sooner rather than later. Other things that are written into federal law may require legislative action at the congressional level, and we are again committed to taking any of those actions that are available to us. Apart from that, our absolute encouragement of states to expand the usage, for example, of the Chafee dollars to address needs of older youth. That will continue to be a major priority for us. Any flexibilities that we have around requirements with regard to the educational training vouchers, other parts of the program that so many of our young people rely on. We are looking at all of those options. Nothing is really off the table for us in terms of being considered to address this area of kids aging out of the foster care system. It's unacceptable.
Thank you. We're going to play the next question here that's coming up here. And I just want to, as we wait for the next question to go on, we're getting reports that there is a bit of a lag time. Unfortunately, right now, there's a lot of folks who are using the internet around the country. that we hear that young people are having during the crisis, is there anything that you can specifically encourage states to do with these funds?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Chafee is a flexible funding stream. We have a lot of flexibilities there. The purpose of the Chafee funds has been to provide flexible funding to states to meet a whole variety of needs of youth and young adults. They've always been used by states to some degree or another to address the immediate fundamental basic needs of youth. It's clear to us in this moment though that the needs of youth of the young people out there may very well likely outpace the funds that are available through the Chafee program. With a set amount of funds given to a state, I've heard that they are trying to balance needs that have arisen during the crisis, which are more short-term needs, and the potentially longer-term needs of youth as well. So unfortunately, while the Chafee funds can provide crisis funding, to young people in the short term. It's not a program that expands in terms of the dollar amount to meet those longer term needs. I will tell you that understanding that, we are also working very diligently on how we might be able to make the Chafee program much more responsive, both in the short term and in the longer term. That's going to take a little bit more effort to change that, but it's something that we're absolutely committed to. Apart from that, we are actively encouraging state child welfare agencies to use the Chafee funds as flexibly as we can. I believe we've already done that in writing, but we've also done it in other settings like this where we've met with child welfare leadership out there, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to make states aware or remind them of the flexibilities that exist under the Chafee program so that they can use those funds to the full benefit of young people.
Ruth, I think you had some thoughts on this question also.
Yes, I'm happy to report that both the Children's Bureau and Congress are really great when it comes to Chafee. In fact, we've stopped referring to it as Chafee. We call it the Independent Living Program because I think a lot of states have sort of contracted that money and locked it in, and the program has ossified somewhat. But I was asked by foster youth like Roman and Chloe and Nikki from Ohio and some former child welfare workers to look into Chafee, the Independent Living Program. And so I looked back at the statute. That program started in 1986, and it is supposed to be whatever a specific young person needs to become independent upon reaching adulthood in foster care. And it, again, thanks to Karen Bassett, it should be going up to 23. Every single state has the authority to take that money and serve youth up through age 23. And so I just want to urge people to really push the envelope on the things that Milner said, like cash assistance and rental assistance and things like that in preparation for things like FYI. So I just think states have not thought of that money as the flexible person by person resource that it's supposed to be. And there's going to be more money for Chafee in the COVID Act. I really believe that. So do push your states in the right direction. And I want to thank Dr. Milner for encouraging states to use that flexibility.
You know, one of the things I'm thinking of is that young people need money now, and they're thinking about how to meet their basic needs today, this week. And so my question is for states who haven't taken advantage of Chafee dollars and they have to go through a process to be able to access that, is there any way that the CB is considering any type of flexibility so that we can get that money quickly to young people? Because that's really what we want to understand is, you know, how long do we have to wait for some of this need to arrive at our front door, and how much will we have lost between now and the moment that the help arrives?
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, again, as Ruth has pointed out, states have the option of extending foster care up to age 21. And if they do that, extending Chafee services to age 23. One of the things we have to do is continue to encourage states to take that option. If they have not, it's a very simple process to be approved for that. And we aren't going to be holding anybody up if that's what they wish to do there. States have the flexibility to offer those critical dollars to support youth out there. I'm not aware that they necessarily need our approval to go and do that. So that flexibility exists.
All right, as we pull up the next question, one thing I just want to be able to point out that I'm just so thankful for the audience for continuing to stay tuned in. We know that there's a bit of a lag, and we are working through it as we're working through it on the call by giving each other pauses here. The attendance is still almost at capacity. So this is how important the information is, that folks are still listening in. So I'm hoping that we can switch over to the question now.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm from New York City, and I'm a former foster
not the forgotten population by any means. You are our future generations. Someday you will be there taking care of me when hopefully I'm not in a nursing home, but maybe if that's the case, I am. And we're going to rely on you folks to be taking care of us as the older generations. I'm not saying I consider myself older. I'm just saying. But I think with the youth homeless demonstration grants, I know that we've had over 150 million to 44 communities across the country. It allows communities to request flexibilities in the current COC rules to ensure there's different local projects to address, basically to best address youth experience, the homeless side of things in their community. The program focuses on coordinated community approach to develop local solutions to end youth homelessness. Key stakeholders in the community where we really rely on public-private partnerships to help. And that means tying into the universities, tying into your public school systems, tying into your social workers, which is your first line of defense. I know, as Jerry said earlier, we got to give them props and kudos because they are doing things right now for you all as youth that others cannot. And which is, with the safety nets being gone right now, with the public schools closed, we realize that there's probably going to be some things that are falling through that we can't all catch. And that's what we're trying to do right now by making this forum go nationwide on the second call. And what Sixto and Think of Us has done to make sure everybody's involved in this, so that way the platform continues to grow. And we can only do this though with your help. So the more people you talk to, the more people you spread the word on with social media, the more we can do more as a collective group. And I know, as Jerry expects it, I expect it, Secretary Carson expects it, we can only do this with your help. That said, we have key stakeholders that try local approaches, which we want to include the youth. You guys are the voice. It's your voice that we're talking about. And sometimes those people who have never lived in the foster care system or aged out of the foster care system, they won't know what to think or how to respond unless you help guide them. And your lived experiences are crucial. We have to have that. Such thing, the Family Unification Program, which is administered about 300 public housing agencies, as an example. I know that's a question I think I've seen on FUP. If some of the counties don't have FUP, where does the tenant protection vouchers come in? I'll probably leave that question to Ruth because she's the human Swiss Army knife on some of this stuff where my deficits are not there. I know that with the Foster Youth Independence Program, which I will continuously talk about, tied with FUP through the housing voucher programs, these are both safety nets that are administered to help youth who are aging out, as well as who already have. I know the program may be administered by nearly about 2,000 public housing agencies across the country. So all of these housing agencies, public housing agencies across the country, are our partners. We can't do it without them. We need their supports, and they need you as the youth to continue to push forward because they're not going to know unless you help.
Thank you, Chris. I want to quickly, Ruth, provide you an opportunity to be able to quickly chime in, and then I know we're coming at time, so I want to make sure that we close as close as possible to it.
Okay, well, I just want to get in on James's question from Illinois and say, advocate for whatever you think is necessary. But what I learned from all the young people and alumni that I've worked with is synchronization, capitalize on predictability. We know exactly when people are aging out, so there shouldn't be homelessness. Vouchers should be synchronized, resources should be synchronized, and this stuff should be available across the country. I mean, there's just I like flexibility, but I think it's been bastardized a bit in that there's too much of a lack of standardization across the country. So anything we can do to get youth out there raising the standards and for what we're doing would be really important. But I just want to say that we have the Foster Youth Independence Program because youth created a program. Yes, I helped, but they delivered it straight to Dr. Carson. There are 1,900 public housing authorities that could administer this program, but currently are not. So if you want more information, you can contact my organization. You can talk to Action Ohio. Jamal Callahan will answer a call from anyone. Chris Patterson will answer a call from anyone. But youth, we're all confused about how to eliminate homelessness. Foster Youth figured it out, and it's called the Foster Youth Independence Program. So let's honor their brilliance and their sophistication by taking them up on the offer. So we're here to help. We're doing a weekly webinar series starting next Thursday at 1. So please tune in, it's free.
Awesome. Awesome. So I just want to recap real quick some of the things that I heard is that for the young people who are worried about aging out during the pandemic, that the reality is that their states are going to have to act, and that the Children's Bureau will do what it can to make things that you're working on something right now around that area. And then what I heard around meeting basic needs was that you will not, I heard you say you won't be the holdup if a state wants to figure out how to use their Chafee funds further if they're not taking the maximum benefits of it. Is there anything else that you would like to point out, Commissioner?
Just that, this group of people who are so deeply affected by this crisis is a major priority for us. You were before the crisis came along, and knowing that you're experiencing the difficulties that you are right now, I think strengthens our resolve to take advantage of whatever flexibilities that we have and to try to create new flexibilities where they might not exist.
Right. Well, with that being said, if we can have 60 seconds from each of you all, and we'll follow up an email and some communications to folks with some of the details of what we just heard. But I want to go ahead and give each of you just a quick 60 seconds of the last thought on your mind here that you want to leave the young people with who have just been extraordinary in organizing to making sure that other young people are getting their needs met.
Okay.
So Ruth, want to kick us off with the 60 seconds, and then Chris, and then we'll end it off with Jerry?
I'll use my 60 seconds to say thank you to all the young people and all the alumni who tuned in. And I take my marching orders from you, so please send me email, go to our website. Lisa at actionohio.org has a much better website than I do, but do reach out to me and help me do my job. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you to the foster youth that are listening. Thank you to Sixto and his team and Commissioner Milner. And thank you on behalf of Secretary Carson, because I can tell you without this initiative for FYI to such a valuable population of people, you are loved, you're respected, you are not forgotten. I can't say that enough. God bless, and we're in your corner to make sure we're here to help defend you and also stick up for you.
Excellent. So I'll just say again, thank you. Thank you for the folks you work with there. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Secretary Carson, as well, because quite a feat to put that program into place. And thanks for the incredibly thoughtful questions. I just want to say that even if we don't have all the answers, again, we're committed to trying to find those answers for you. It's a privilege for us to be able to work alongside of you and to hear your concerns and to try to problem solve on your behalf. And we'll continue to do that for as long as you need us. So thank you.
Well, I can't thank you all enough for making yourselves available to answer directly from young people. We had 1,400 people register for this town hall. We took those questions. We used software to organize the priorities. Housing came up first. And there were some other needs around education. And I just wanted to lift that up quick just to put that on the map, that as we think about the immediate needs, there's some of us who are working on the long-term roadmap of making sure that our young people still have access to the thing that does bring a bit of equity to the conversation, which is education. With that being said, I want to thank all of the young people who have been organizing, who have been at the center of the change that we see occurring. I want to thank all the panelists and all of our partners who have made this possible. And there are 2 other national youth webinars coming up, one from the CWLA and one from the National Foster Youth Institute. And we will be sending out their information too. The movement is strong, and thank you all for tuning in.